CIOs and IT departments they lead are hard-pressed to cope with an ever-increasing volume of technical projects that their business units are literally clamoring for. In addition, while dealing with this heavy workload, IT is also required to be cost-conscious, efficient, and as the saying goes, do more with less. To help manage critical IT projects, resources, and personnel under some pretty tough conditions, modern enterprises have turned to IT portfolio management. In this report, we'll define IT portfolio management, explore its benefits, and offer best practices that will help organizations do it well. This program features expert Joan Walker, principal of Tagan Point Consulting Group based in Washington Crossing, Pennsylvania. The firm specializes in business transformation from strategy through execution. Joan Walker has over 20 years of experience driving both business process and IT solutions to support global business strategies for large corporate clients. There are several teaching points in this program. First, we'll define IT portfolio management and learn exactly what it entails. Next, we'll review the major reasons why IT projects fail. Then, we'll identify the key steps to create an IT portfolio, or just improve an existing one. We'll also discuss the software tools that support IT portfolio management. Our conclusion will include IT portfolio management best practices and added thoughts and advice from our guest expert, Joan Walker. Now, let's begin our report. First, we'll present a summary of how executives view their IT projects today. Then, with the help of our guest expert, we'll define IT portfolio management and learn what it entails. Checking in on today's IT project landscape shows that we've still got quite a bit of work to do when it comes to bringing in successful technology projects on time and on budget. For example, just take a look at the data from a research paper authored by the custom software development firm Genica. Their survey of 600 business and IT executives documented that 45% of the executive survey admitted they're unclear about the business objectives of their IT projects. Only 47% stated their teams achieve 70 to 89% of their goals. 78% of the survey participants said their project requirements are usually or always out of sync with the business. And finally, less than 20% described the requirements process as the articulation of business need. Considering all the focus on IT project management today, the Genica survey findings are concerning, to say the least. It seems clear that the organizations included in the survey would surely benefit from an effective IT portfolio management program. Let's turn to our expert, Joan Walker, and begin our discussion on this timely and interesting topic. Joan, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here.
Joan, to get us started, let's begin by defining an IT portfolio and tell us what it's all about.
Sure. An IT portfolio is an agreed-to list of IT projects that are made up of both tactical and operational and strategic business projects that IT resources are essentially allocated to execute on a regular basis.
So then when you refer to IT portfolio management, what does it all entail?
An IT portfolio management is really the overall strategic planning process that aligns programs with business-enabled capabilities, fundamental IT operational enhancements, and technology innovation with the intent of driving differentiation and overall value to the business. It's a structured approach to include various types of projects that are in those types of categories that I just described, and enables management to see a bird's eye view of where they're investing in their project resources.
Well, Joan, I'm sure you would agree that IT portfolio management is not a new concept. In fact, I believe you could find its roots dating back to the 1980s and 90s. But I'd like to get a sense of what is happening with it today. So please just give us a sense of the current landscape of IT portfolio management.
Sure. I think in the last decade or so, Mike, executives seem to be challenged with balancing business demand, IT service enhancements, and staying current with business innovation. CIOs and IT executives have an exorbitant amount of pressures on them today, from managing ongoing operational costs and global service levels to considerations of big data and cloud and security concerns, all while integrating consumer-driven technologies into the enterprise. So today, I think it is much more diversified, and the demand is much more diversified to deal with than a few decades ago.
Is IT portfolio management a generally accepted practice among organizations today? In other words, Will I find it being utilized in the majority of organizations and corporations?
Yes, absolutely. IT portfolio management is definitely an accepted practice. Generally, the larger the organization, the more structure is put in place around this particular process. And I find that in smaller or mid-sized companies, they don't always necessarily go through this exercise formally. And some organizations perceive this process to be very time-consuming and bureaucratic, and tend to shy away from the structured approach and take on less of a controlled approach.
And remind us why we need IT portfolio management, and also tell us how IT and business benefit from it.
Well, there are multiple benefits to looking at all the work that your IT resources are allocated to on a regular basis to ensure you're balanced between IT projects and business projects. There are efficiencies and cost savings to be realized when there is a structure put in place through the process of allocating budget to each of the project candidates that complies with the IT portfolio criteria. So by the same token, those projects that are running under the radar could be justifiably scrutinized to ensure alignment to the overall portfolio. So IT benefits from the overall practice because resources are appropriately in place to support the operational IT needs, and the business benefits because resources are appropriately allocated to the strategic business projects that will hopefully enable the business to excel. So having a balanced IT portfolio is critical to achieving these objectives.
Next, we'll talk about the leading reasons why IT projects fail. Then we'll identify the key steps to create an IT portfolio, or just improve an existing one. In addition, we'll hear about some of the software solutions that support IT portfolio management. So, what is the current thinking on why we experience a high failure rate with IT projects? Well, the folks at the Project Management Institute looked at the issue in a report titled Pulse of the Profession: Capturing the Value of Project Management. Here's what the PMI researchers documented and presented in this annual global survey of project, program, and portfolio managers. According to PMI, the top contributors to large IT project failures are, first, unclear objectives or lack of business focus. Second, unrealistic schedule and reactive planning. The third contributor, shifting requirements and technical complexity. The fourth contributor was unaligned teams and missing skills. And the fifth, unexplained causes. Now, with effective IT portfolio management in place, it's quite possible to reduce or eliminate altogether those project failure contributors we just heard about. But how exactly does IT portfolio management accomplish all that? Well, experts tell us that first, IT portfolio management enables organizations to maximize the value of their IT investment while significantly reducing the risks. Second, it enables better communication and helps maintain good alignment between IT and the business. Third, it promotes a team-like approach to projects among the stakeholders. Fourth, it aids project planning and the scheduling of resources. The fifth and final way that IT portfolio management can help reduce project failure is that it can identify and shrink the number of similar or redundant technology projects that often plague larger IT organizations. With those thoughts in mind, let's return to our guest expert, Joan Walker, and learn more about IT portfolio management. Now, Joan, let's drill down more into our topic today. Could you start by telling us what the key steps are in creating and managing an IT portfolio?
Sure. I can think of 5 key steps that are critical to this process, and the first is strategy and planning. The second is prioritization. The third is communication. The fourth is realization, and the fifth is have a review process. So I'll go back to the strategy and planning. So strategy and planning around IT portfolio, you really need to take into account both business and IT strategy, as I indicated before, into consideration for the prioritization phase. And then identify upcoming business projects that will require IT resources, and then ensure there is a balance between IT and business. On the prioritization phase, apply the critical criteria for each project. So your group will come up with standardized criteria such as financials, the degree of difficulty, the degree of risk in the project, resource allocation analysis, and then you eventually prioritize all of those. The third area in communication is really you have to build consensus and alignment within the IT and the business. And you also have to communicate to your IT resources what is up and coming. And finally, you prioritize all of those candidates together. The realization phase comes in when you integrate the IT portfolio into your financial systems. You work with the program management organization on execution and put in proper metrics for realization. And then the final phase, which is the review phase, you have a scheduled portfolio reviews, you institute project status reports or progress reports, you can do a spend analysis and address potential future demands of project, and then of course build in continuous improvement.
Now, is that process done once, or does it require constant updating and attention?
Sure. Mike, that actually depends. At least once a year, depending upon the dynamics of the organization. I have seen this done twice a year, and in larger organizations, it's tied with the overall business planning process with finance. So finance is a key stakeholder in this entire portfolio management process.
Joan, what goals should you keep in mind as you create and manage your portfolio?
Sure. You really have to take into account both the business strategy and the IT strategy. That's a best practice. Review your divisional projects before your portfolio prioritization phase. Understand the IT impact of each project and prioritize your projects so you can combine similar projects that look alike, smell alike. Avoid technical language when you're building your business case and describing them and the jargon, because it will usually confuse the layman. And then keep a balance of operational, business enabling, and innovation types of projects in your portfolio.
Is IT portfolio management a difficult thing to implement? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. There are numerous challenges, but the benefits outweigh a lot of the challenges. So there's three that at the top of my mind. Gaining buy-in across the board for programs or projects that management don't feel is a priority. You really have to gain buy-in. And to overcome this, you have proper criteria in place and a solid business case to support your position. Secondarily, leading with the tool instead of the process will create more challenges than it's worth. You first have to lay the groundwork for the portfolio process, then address what tool will meet your needs. And thirdly, communicate what the process is and how to comply to avoid any projects that pop up in, let's say, shadow IT areas.
Now, many of our viewers may work for organizations that already have IT portfolio management in place. Can you offer any thoughts on how to improve an existing IT portfolio management program and make it more effective?
Sure, Mike. So reworking your existing IT portfolio with the intent of improving it is always a great thing. Although you will need alignment from the stakeholders, as the outcome could push some programs or projects off the grid. So communication is essential. So looking at the type of metrics you're using to measure success is a key one also. So some metrics are looking at your complete portfolio mix, so the percentage of portfolio spend in running the business, growing the business, innovating the business. Another metric that is demand and capacity. So that is the prioritization and sequencing, appropriately given capacity, and the percentage of increase in project intake, the percentage of growth in initiatives, IT resource utilization, business resource utilization, and your recruiting pipeline. The third is the value, the overall value of your IT portfolio. What's the percentage on time? What's the percentage on budget? What's the amount that you're saving for consolidation of various projects that look alike? And then finally, and the fourth one is financial management. So how effectively are we managing projects? What is the percentage of variance to plan? How much budget is committed but not spent? So those four top metrics, I think, are critical.
Joan, let's talk about the software tools that can support IT portfolio management. What should organizations be looking for in a tool? And do you have any tips on selecting software solutions?
Sure. You can always look at the the top 4 or 5, which are Enotus, Clarizen, ChangePoint. There's Workfront, and of course there's the Microsoft project portfolio management, which is PPM. So I would look for an application platform that is scalable and potentially cloud-based if you don't have the resources on premise to maintain it, and also the ability to do demand and capacity planning with resource allocation to drive the financials and a comprehensive analytic dashboards for reporting up to management.
Joan, is there a case study success story, perhaps from one of your clients, that you could share in order to help viewers better understand the benefits of IT portfolio management?
So we did a instantiation of a portfolio for one of our clients in the Department of Defense areas, and they were very loosely structured. They had disparate resources. They had a number of operational, very heavily weighted on the operational side and not the strategic side. And so we helped them set up a list of criteria, and they had over 75 projects. This was a small to mid-sized company. And at the end, we narrowed it down to 34 projects. And so what that did is we gave them a structure in place, we put criteria in place, we gave them a business case model in terms of all of the stakeholders that were managing all of the strategic projects and then the operational projects to make sense of what was being spent from a financial budget perspective, because they really didn't have an understanding of what was being spent. They didn't have a handle on all their IT resources and why nobody was available to do strategic projects. So in the end, we were able to give them a great model. We set them up on an IT platform, an IT portfolio management platform, which they successfully implemented. And so we helped them get to the execution phase and then did a knowledge transfer.
Now we'll conclude with best practices and hear final thoughts and advice from our guest expert, Joan Walker. In this program, we defined IT portfolio management and learned what it entails. Then we discussed the leading causes of IT project failure and learned how IT portfolio management could help improve overall project success rates. We then identified the key steps to create an IT portfolio and identified some of the software solutions that support that task. Next, we'll conclude with best practices and hear some final thoughts and advice from our guest expert, Joan Walker. Joan, please summarize your comments today by offering several best practices for effective IT portfolio management.
Sure, Mike. So you really need to take into account both the business strategy and IT strategy when building your IT portfolio. Make sure you do a review of your divisional or business projects before portfolio prioritization phase and understand the IT impact of each project. Keep a balance of operational, business enabling, and innovative technology. Also, make sure to use a balanced scorecard, which will assist in the overall readout and setting expectations to your management team. Build a strong financial model that will help you manage those metrics or to those metrics that I had mentioned, and make sure you invest in a portfolio tool and put appropriate metrics in place to measure success.
Could you offer a final thought for our viewers on today's topic?
Sure. So there are challenges to doing IT portfolio management, but the benefits definitely outweigh the challenges. If you put a structured approach in, you can do an annual planning process or a biannual planning process and be able to have an understanding of what your balance is in your portfolio. That will help the IT area support the business and build good relationships, which is key to understanding how to enable the business, right? When you have a good relationship, they're more open, they bring you to the table early on in terms of large strategic projects, as opposed to being a commodity and being brought to the table late on, right? And so if you have proper metrics in place and you have a structured portfolio planning process in place, that will help you be successful in enabling your business.
Joan Walker, principal of Tagan Point Consulting Group, thanks for sharing such great information on IT portfolio management.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, that completes our report today. I'm Michael Quinlan, and thanks for watching.